Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on conversation on the road. We're kind of taking off where we left off from the last video and adding on to some phrases that you can use in the time period that you're on the road. Here's some vocabulary for you. There's a lot of polite words in this section, and just remember that those are only used for other people. You want to use these kinds of words on other people, not yourself. Okay, so get those worked on, and here is some of the phrases. This video is going to be really short, not going to be a lot to it, just other than you knowing what these mean. So here's this page, and I encourage you to pause the video at this point and get these written down or at least looked over. Okay, and the one thing that I do want to say is here, just as you say so, if I may say so. What I'm trying to say here is your or U2 or U3 plus, their title. So you either say, if it's one person, Lau Susunga perhaps, or if it's two of them, then you'd say Lua Susunga, and three or more would be To Susunga. And depending on the appropriate title, you need to figure that out from the last video, then you use that there. You can also use ma'am, faletua, or tausi, depending on which kind of chief, if they are a chief's spouse, or mother. This one, I use this quite a bit, tina, especially for the lo'o matuas, the older ladies, and it seemed to be like something that they enjoyed, basically calling them mom, pretty much. So moving on to the next one, I encourage you again to pause the video here and get these looked over. Okay, I hope you paused. These last ones right here, we'll be right back. This was one of my favorite sayings. This is kind of a tangent. But if there's just two of you, maoma o mai, and if you say it really fast, it's kind of like a tongue twister, but it sounds really cool. So that was one of my favorite phrases there. And if there's three or more, you'd obviously use the motto. This is more for like missionaries. If you're going to do lesson, program, or visit, you can use program. We don't really say I'm going to my program in English, but they say that. It's almost like appointment or something like that. Obviously you can switch that with, you can switch the highlighted portion with whatever you want. But these are just some options that came to mind, especially if you're going to be on a mission. If it's just one person, you can say, yeah, so'ualuia. We learned that from the first greetings video. That's kind of a way that you just say, I'll be going now. And then you could also say, like, well, we'll be heading now. This is a cool way that they say it. Yeah, oleama or matzo sosola. Sosola. That literally means like escape, but they use this a lot for heading, and this is something that you can use on yourself. You don't, whereas the ngai, the ngai was, you need to use that on other people. This is a polite word or honorific word. You use ngai on other people. But if you wanted to say kind of that same line of thinking, we're heading this way, even though it means escape, it kind of also means heading in a certain direction. So sola. And I'm kind of exaggerating that a little bit, but you get the idea. So moving on, this is the last stuff. So if you're heading on the road and you see someone, my compliments on the work, malo le ngalue, or whatever it may be. This is one of those where you can get away with, you're complimenting them. You can get away with talking on the road. But if they ask you something afterwards, they could just acknowledge you and be like, oh, thanks. But if they ask you something, then I would go back to what last video was talking about. Be like, tau tala tuatu, ile tulanga valea, and basically excuse yourself. Or vaiatu, it could be a short version. So if you really wanted to, you could just say vaiatu, and then their title. And then you would say whatever you were going to say. So you don't have to go over that every time. And another thing that I wanted to mention in the last video, but I didn't, was that that you don't have to do that to people you know. Once you start to kind of become familiar with them, you still need to excuse yourself, but you don't need to go through that whole thing. You can just shorten it to, tautala tuatu. So one of those. Or you can do the vaiatu or vaiane, whichever. But you do need to probably excuse yourself every time you're on the road. You just don't need to say that huge long phrase, tautala tuatu ile tulanga valea, every time. Just maybe the first or second time you see someone and do that. And if it's a chief, it's a chief, I would try to stick to maybe the more formal way until you're maybe on speaking terms with them. If you get along with them really well, then you can kind of, slide a little bit as well. But if you aren't on, first name basis with them, or, somewhat similar to that, then I would encourage you to just use the formalities. So here's the video, guys. I hope it helped, and until next time, tofa soifua.